All right. Well, welcome everyone. Great to see you, and just a wonderful representation of folks here from all over. I did want to mention before we started that Lisa pointed out to me and that today is actually the six-month anniversary of our losing Peter. And so I wanted to just sort of dedicate this call to him, because legal education was one of his really great passions. And so continuing this conversation, I think he would have been very happy for us to do it. And so we will continue it in his spirit. So just wanted to mention that. Oh, and there comes Twyla. Okay, so we're one or two more people and then we will jump in. I'm actually going to turn it over to Perry in just a sec to do just an opening go round, but there's Twyla. Welcome, Twyla, and welcome, Sylvia.
Hi. Good morning.
Hi. Greetings. All right, so Perry will lead us in just introducing ourselves. I know most of us know each other, but not all. And then Chris will help set the scene for our discussion, if that's okay, Chris. With me, together, and others. Okay, so Perry, over to you.
Yeah. We have our traditional opening go round. Excuse me. Say your name and where you are physically at the moment, and what you might be looking at. So I'm Perry Sedman, and I am still in Miami Beach, Florida, looking out at Biscayne Bay and the Miami skyline in the distance. And it is just lovely today. So Nanette, why don't you say something? I'm just going around.
Sure. Okay. Hi, everyone. Nanette Shore. I'm based in New York City, and I'm in my office in the Bronx, in the South Bronx. I'm kind of just looking at my office, but if I turn around and look outside, it's a bit of a cloudy day, but there's a wonderful view of the George Washington Bridge. It feels very urban and very Bronx being here.
Great. Chris, why don't you say something about where you are and what you might be looking at?
Sure. So I'm Chris Canios. I'm in San Francisco. I'm not in my old office, which you see behind me, which I miss very much. It's one of the reasons I keep it up. I'm actually in my bedroom and I'm staring out a window at my neighbor's wall. So that's where I'm at.
Okay, thank you. Good that you're here. Claire, it's your turn.
I am obviously Claire. I'm in the East Bay of the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm looking at you because you're right here. But behind you are a bunch of paintings on the wall of sort of spirals of energy in very bright colors.
Great to have you. Ken, you're next.
Thank you, Perry. I'm Ken, currently in Sarasota, Florida, looking in the northerly direction from my condo at trees and vegetation that I presume are native to Florida.
Good to have you.
Thank you.
Duncan?
Hello, all. Glad to be here. I am in Gloucester, Massachusetts. It was kind of misty and cool this morning, but the sun is now out and there's just glorious sunshine. I can see the harbor from here and I can watch the boats coming in and out of the harbor.
Cool. Kathy, you're next.
Okay, I'm in San Francisco like Chris, and I live in Glen Park, which is south of Noe Valley. And I'm looking at my kitchen at the moment.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Angie, welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm Angie Gaius. I'm also in San Francisco, not too far from the rest of the folks here. I'm in Bernal Heights. I'm looking at a combination of my kitchen and beautiful Bernal Hill, which is still very green from our wet winter and covered in poppies, which is particularly lovely.
Welcome to you. So far, we have 2 kitchens, 1 wall, and 2 bodies of water with boats. Okay, I'm keeping track. Lyle, you're next.
I'm Lyle Baker. I teach at Suffolk Law School in Boston, and I'm looking out at the Granary Burying Ground, which is right across the street, just at the foot of Beacon Hill. And I just am for a short walk there and looked at the tomb of John Hancock. So just to remind us that we are here because of some brave people a long time ago. And I just want to say I have to apologize. I have a student coming in to see me at 1:50, so I will have to break off at that point, but I'll stick as long as I can.
To have you here. Your Honorable Bruce.
Hi, I'm Bruce Peterson. I'm in my home office in Minneapolis, and I'm looking out at my backyard. It is a wonderful day. The sun is streaming down. The air is like champagne. It's about 55 degrees, which is beautiful here. So we're all very happy here today.
Great. Glad you could join us. Kim, welcome.
Thank you. So I'm Kim Wright. I'm a fellow and professor at the Quinnipiac University Center on Dispute Resolution Project for Integrative Law and Legal Education. And I am in Burlington, North Carolina. And when I look out my window, I see clouds are coming and going. When I started this conversation, there was sun coming through a very huge tree in my backyard, and now the clouds have covered the sun and it's kind of cloudy.
We are getting a national weather report here, folks. Twyla, you're next.
Yes, I'm in Austin. Let's see. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, I'm in Austin, and I am looking at the beautiful Texas Hill Country. And to continue the weather report, it is overcast and cloudy. It's been storming here off and on, and I expect it will again this afternoon.
Good to have you.
It's so nice to see Lisa here, and you, Perry, and Kim Wright. I haven't seen you in so long. It's really nice to be with all of you this morning.
Good to have you.
Good.
So, Sylvia, you're next.
I'm Sylvia Plute, and I'm in Richmond, Virginia, in my dining room. I'm looking out the window at a beautiful sunny day on the East Coast.
Are you in your kitchen by any chance? Can you see your kitchen? Kitchens are forging ahead.
Oh, she's on mute now.
Oh yeah, I'm in my dining room.
Oh, okay. All right.
Where I do a lot of work at the dining table.
Lisa.
Good morning. I'm in San Francisco, and Peter's in my apartment in between Kathy and Chris and Angie in San Francisco. I'm in our living room. I'm looking out at a tree I bet you all have heard about from Peter many times, that often blooms throughout the year, these bright yellow flower blossoms, which I think it's an acacia. And people have challenged us saying those only bloom once a year, but I'm here to say they bloom more than once. So hoping that's going to happen soon, because it has been this unbelievable combination of storm and now sunshine and spring, and everything is blossoming around here.
Glad you're here.
Me too.
Marjorie, welcome.
Sorry I was late. We were interviewing a wonderful young woman as a candidate for legal process. I am in my everything room, which is also my home office in New York City, looking out also on the East Coast, but it's overcast here. But I will say that my view is, despite tall apartment buildings across the way, just filled with the green leaves of early spring. So that's very nice.
Good to have you here. Julie, you're next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Gilgoff. I met Lisa and Peter in San Francisco in the summer, but I'm currently in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I teach property law at Duquesne School of Law. And it's a nice day today. Yesterday was literally hailing, but today the sun is out. It's about 60 degrees, so it keeps switching back and forth.
Good to have you, Julie. And I think last but not least, certainly, is Bonnie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bonnie Silvestri. I'm here in Sarasota, Florida, and looking forward to this discussion. As I mentioned last time, I'm at the site of New College of Florida, which has been going through a lot of upheaval. So it'll be very nice to talk about progress in the legal education field. Thank you.
Great. Terrific. Nanette, let me turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Perry. Thanks for leading that, and just wonderful to have you all here. And we have so many legal educators or folks who are interested in legal education. Just to give a little quick moment on the genesis of this call, I was out in San Francisco back in January for Peter's Memorial. And Chris and I had coffee, and I also met Kathy then, and we talked about the Practitioners of Justice film and trailer that had been created, and talked about doing, showing that film, and then also having a discussion about legal education, because it's so pivotal to the transformation of a legal culture, to really re-envision and reimagine legal education. Of course, many of you are already involved in that project. And during the same visit, I also met with Angie and with Twyla, as did Chris, and we all talked about kind of putting this together. And of course, Margie was an early inspiration for this work as well. So it's great to have everybody. This is really an open discussion. It's not a presentation. So it's more a chance for us to both sort of advance what we saw and learned during the Practitioners of Justice trailer, and give some thought to what are folks' experience in trying to bring transformational elements into legal education, and can we create a little seed of something at PISLAP that engages with that on an ongoing basis. Perry has taken the liberty of calling that seed that he would love to see develop the Peter Gable PISLAP School of Law. But we'll start perhaps with a conversation today and see where that all leads. So Chris, let me turn it over to you to say a few words.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess that this really did emerge, in Peter's memory, and with the film that Peter really made sure was made, which was really just meant to be kind of a record of what New College tried to do, was successful in some ways, and then what so many of our graduates have been doing, kind of carrying the spirit of New College forward in their work. And talking with Nanette about like Peter's article on Imagine Law, I think just in and of itself could be the focus of just some brainstorming and discussion and some of the themes that are there. The notion of how you all could influence legal education and are influencing legal education now, but how that can be a broader, more impactful kind of effort is to me is kind of a daunting task, because you have what's going on inside law schools, and I know so many people try to do really valuable stuff, in their courses, and creating different experiences for students. And then you have this world out kind of outside law school, which is kind of like the compliance thing of the ABA and the bar exam, and the demands that actually puts on law schools and limits us often in what we could do inside law school, right? So I think it's kind of a daunting task, but I think it's an important one. And the idea of kind of looking at the trailer, looking back at what New College tried, I look at that and I honestly, some of it feels archaic. a little bit. I mean, it was so 50 years ago, but he was back at this period of time that was kind of unique, and we felt that, and I think in many ways we were doing some very alternative approaches within a more public interest and social justice concerned way. But 50 years later, some of those efforts are, some of them have been incorporated widely into legal education, like the practical skills component, both in the classroom and with external internships, which was a core part of what we did at New College, and which I still think it should be, is a exceptionally important, valuable part of training and community service. Training and also having law schools play a role and law students play a role in community service, not just separate and apart. But last time we were together, I realized that how much of what we did do at New College was adversarial based, and that despite efforts to incorporate more restorative justice, collaborative lawyering, healing-based approaches, it only kind of snuck in here or there, and it was difficult to incorporate it as an integral part of what was going on. And to me, I think that's perhaps one of the real challenges. If that approach to lawyering, a more healing-based approach, one thing that we are able to do, is to talk to our students about their role as lawyers. So I always love that, the title of like counselor at law. Don't you want to be a counselor, to talk to somebody about what's going on in front of them, as opposed to the hired gun, right? There's this very dramatic distinction between the roles of lawyers. So we try to do things like that, but I am kind of just intimidated at the task of how legal education truly could be, and the difficulty of imagining it not as a part of a broader system that also incorporates those values, right? So anyway, I think it's all worthwhile, and that's kind of that. Nanette.
Yes, thank you, Chris. Thanks for kicking us off with those reflections. So I think we just want to open it up now. There could be any number of questions people address, for those of many of you who are already legal educators or have engaged with legal education. How is it working for you? What's your vision? What's your aspiration? How are you struggling with that? What do we think are the core elements of a transformative approach to legal education? I think the seeds of them I felt were brought out in the Practitioners of Justice trailer, and mentioned by Chris, the importance of practice, student involvement in governance, integrating the study of more healing approaches to the law. An issue that Peter was always very concerned about, which was the questioning of the doctrinal assumptions about, the role of capitalism or other assumptions that are embedded into the way law is taught that could be questioned. Do things actually have to be the way they are? And humanizing the stories in the law, humanizing legal education. So I think those were some of the early elements of the New College model, which I think have continued in much of the work you all are doing. So I'm just going to open it up, and whoever wants to jump in, it'd be great. Bruce, please.
I have a question for Chris.
Okay.
I have a lot of thoughts about my own course and how it folds into current legal education, but I have a question for Chris based upon the foremost guru of legal practice, Perry Mason. And I don't know if anybody has seen the new series on Perry Mason. It's very, very different from what we watched when we were kids. He's been very traumatized during World War I. He's in Los Angeles in 1932, but he becomes a lawyer by apprenticing with a practicing lawyer. and he skips the whole legal education problem. And that, I seem to recall, is how John Adams, the foremost lawyer in the American colonies, became a lawyer. And that would short circuit too, all the ABA requirements and all the institutional barriers. If you could apprentice with a public interest lawyer. Did you ever explore that, Chris?
Oh, yes, very much so, actually, because California is perhaps the only, I don't know if any other state allows somebody to qualify to sit for the bar exam, right? Most all of you in other states, you have to graduate from an ABA school in order to be, qualified to sit for that state's bar exam. That's generally the requirement. California has this other layer of accreditation, state accreditation by the Committee of Bar Examiners of the State Bar of California. And one of the ways of qualifying to sit for the bar exam in California is this reading for the bar, which I don't know why that's been picked up, but it's sometimes called reading for the bar. And it is exactly, Bruce, what you're talking about. And in fact, it's one of the reasons that New College called its internship program the apprenticeship program, because it was kind of based on that idea that deep legal training and education would happen from the actual practice and involvement in law in that way. So what people have to do, though, is they have to engage with a lawyer or a judge for the equivalent of 4 years of law study. And I think after the first year, they are required to pass what we call our baby bar, our first year law students examination. I think so. And so it's done. When I went to law school at New College, my study partner, after 1 year, decided to do that and spend the next 3 years reading for the bar. It's very rare. This is actually the Kim Kardashian approach in California. That's what she's doing. She's reading for the bar. She's hired tutors, lawyers who are working with her. So I think you're onto something. I think that's a very interesting avenue. I think the supervision required is very serious, right? I mean, the hours put in. I think the supervising attorneys or judges are supposed to submit, their curriculum or how they are going about doing this. But I think that's an important avenue to keep on the table as an interesting option. So yes, it's very much alive. I don't know anywhere else, and you all would know it perhaps. I don't know if this is an option outside of California.
Julie put in the chat that she thought New York has a 1 year option, which is interesting. I see Lyle has his hand raised. Lyle, go ahead.
I am an impression, and I'll have to verify it, that New Hampshire is doing something in this direction. The one thing you started off, Chris, talking about the pressures from the outside and inside. There's at least a positive pressure right now, because the change in Section 303 has given law schools a new opportunity to look at both the issue of the whole question of cross-cultural competencies, but also well-being, and the interpretation for the requirement for study of professional identity includes the interpretation talks about well-being practices, which is something I'm working on. I've just finished an article about Justice Louis Brandeis looked at retrospectively as a candidate for the kind of lawyer that students might emulate, but and he had his public interest work, as you all know, as a private attorney. But the interpretation, and if I can pull it up here just to be clear about it, says that the development of professional identity should involve an intentional exploration of the values, guiding principles, and well-being practices considered foundational to successful legal practice. So there is now at least a statement that values are part of what we should be thinking about. Now, the content of that is really not well explored, unexplored, and some people are doing work in a whole variety of ways. But I just want to mention it because there is now at least an external marker for some of the things you've been talking about here already. That's all.
Yeah, I would think if anybody has the opportunity to infiltrate the education committee, I don't know what the exact committee is of the ABA, and have some influence on those regulations in a whole variety of areas, right? In a whole variety of areas, that would be amazing, because
Well,
schools are so dependent.
Well, I think the AALS section on well-being, actually, I was a part of that work, lobbied hard to get well-being included because we thought it was an umbrella idea that needed to be in there. And so there it is. Anyway, my article will be out shortly, and I'll send a link to.
Oh, please do
when
that.
it comes out.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Great. So Julie, then Kim, then Lisa. So Julie.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I actually, my first year out of law school, I worked at the Sustainable Economies Law Center that I found, through Cutting Edge Law, and then pursued. So they have a bunch of apprentices, and there, as Chris said, it's just super time intensive. So they only accept a certain number of apprentices each year. And there's the baby bar that you need to pass after the first year, and just do a whole bunch of self-studying. When I went to CUNY Law School, I was interested in dropping out, really sick of legal education. And, a professor told me, really discouraged me from taking that path, but it is an option in New York that I believe you need to have 1 year at an accredited law school, and then you have to find someone to supervise your apprenticeship. But he really discouraged me because he said, part of what you get with JD is really the community and all the connections. But if there was a very active community, alternative community like this, to help somebody network and make these connections, especially in public interest law, it might serve the same role. I just went through the market to find a tenure track position, and as someone who attended CUNY Law School, because it is a public interest law school and it saved me a lot of money, I really encountered a lot of bias. Really, there's so much elitism in legal education, and the expectation that you will have graduated from a top tier law school, and an assumption that if you didn't graduate from a top tier law school, it's because you didn't have the option to go to one of those schools, and you don't have reasons, and it reflects your intelligence and your ability to educate. I was a former kindergarten teacher, and when I tell my students that I was a kindergarten teacher, they sometimes encounter some looks like, oh, how did you get from there to here? Sometimes it's a curiosity, and sometimes it's judgment. But I've been told that I am their professor who listens the most, and even when they have questions, and active listening. And I feel like these soft skills, of course, there's an opportunity to bring it into every classroom, no matter what topic you teach. But that's one area that I think law schools might be open to. Of course, it might insult some professors of active listening skills and other soft skills that aren't really taught to professors, because what qualifies people to be a legal educator? Do you even have an interest in teaching and in your interactions with students? And a lot of people do bring empathy, and some people do not. I'm forgetting my last point, but I'll get back to it.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks for those reflections. Kim.
So I put the links, and so Julie, thanks for the Cutting Edge Law shout out. The Sustainable Economies Law Center and has that program that she is talking about. And so I have a link there. And then I also just did a real quick search, and there are other states I've already forgotten: Washington and let's see, Vermont, Virginia, Washington, California, where there are opportunities.
Kim, thank you. What could you say the name of that center you were mentioning again? Sustainable
Economies Law Center. They're in East Bay. Yeah, definitely. If you don't know them, they're doing amazing work on so many different fronts. I don't know if they still do, but one of the ways that they organize themselves is that everybody gets paid the same thing, and they get paid based on the median income in their neighborhood. And so what just recognizing that everybody is participating in and making it work for everybody. So the lawyers get paid the same thing as the administrators and so forth. They're very cutting edge. Janelle Orsi,
they're a law school or an actual law school?
No, they're a law firm.
Firm, okay.
Julie, you probably know more about them
Yeah,
than I do.
They try to run as a co-op, so they reflect the values, internally that they wish to bring to society. And they work with, they develop alternative real estate models and work with communities of color in developing solutions in neighborhoods. They really reflect the values that internally that they wish to see in the outside world.
And also Janelle Orsi, who's one of the founders, is also a founder of Sharing Law. Yeah, so that's the link I put it.
Yeah.
Lyle, that is the selc.org, I think is the link I posted. That's them. Oh, you're on mute.
No, thank you. I'll find it. Yeah.
They're they'd be a good PISLAP guest speaker if you could find somebody that has the time to do that from SELC.
Great, thank you, Kim. I think Lisa was next. Did we lose Lisa? Yeah, Lisa. Oh, she's coming back in. So I think Duncan and then Kathy. And we might put Lisa back in when she gets here.
I just wanted to follow up on the language that Julie used about the soft stuff. I taught doctors dialogue skills for quite a number of years. And the phrase that they came up with is the soft stuff is the hard stuff. And there's something about the being a person. And as I shared with Lyle after meeting him online last time, that I did a talk for the Washington State Bar Association called Being a Lawyer is Being a Person. And that was certainly not the way I was taught when I was in law school. I went to UCLA, and there was no emphasis on what the human experience of being a lawyer was all about. And I've spent my professional career working with people at an intimate level, just knowing what it's like to be them. And it strikes me that that's at least one area in which law schools could really use some help, is just what it's like to be a person and practice law. What are the challenges that you face as a human being? Certainly relational skills, things like that. But the soft stuff is the hard stuff, I think. The theoretical stuff was easier for me mentally.
Can I respond to that?
Sure, go ahead, Kim.
So that's what we're running into in the course that I've been teaching, the integrative law approach to negotiation. We have a simulation course, and we have a clinic. And what we're discovering that the things that we take for granted as, the human skills are the things that are the biggest challenges. Things like accountability are unheard of and not even talked about in law school. Our students, because they've come up in an age of text messaging and all that, they don't know how to write an email, or create a relationship. I mean, it sounds really really simple, but they don't, even though we model it and we show them how to have a relationship, how to check in with each other and everything, they have a really hard time carrying that through and working with their clients. And so that it is the real tough stuff, especially now, I think, after COVID, and they kind of missed some of that socialization.
So many different directions being teased out here. Thank you, Kim. Who is it on the 707 number that's dialed in?
That'd be Colleen O'Neill.
Oh, whom? I'm sorry.
Colleen O'Neill.
Oh, Colleen, welcome. Great. Lisa is still trying to get in. She's got a Wi-Fi issue, so let's progress to the next person. Was Kathy? I think you were next. Am I right?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know how to do the hand thing on
That's
the
okay.
video on the chat thing. Anyhow, I was just thinking about everything people have said, and that perhaps reaching out more is one of the keys here. It seems to me PISLAP somehow, as an organization, if it could reach out to more law teachers, maybe that there is a communication, or I don't know if that's the right word, but a way to bring PISLAP into the law education, the mainstream, I guess is what I'm saying. And whether it's via publicity or mass emails or something that would allow people to hear the kind of discussions that you're having here, that isn't limited to people that are already kind of in tune with doing things differently, and with doing a kind of a more humanistic approach to law and so on. All the things that you're doing, that you're discussing right now, needs to be brought out into more mainstream legal education. That's all I'm meant to say. Just some way to bring that out. That might be the key here, to not just a discussion about everything, which is great, and all the ideas are great, but anyway, that's just what I wanted to say. My 2 cents.
No, thank you, Kathy. That very important is outreach. There's a huge amount of wisdom in this group here, and experience and ideas, and of course, getting it out more broadly is a very important challenge. Agreed. Did I miss anyone whose hand was up? Lisa's going to call in. So
Sylvia.
Sylvia, great. Go ahead, Sylvia.
So I wanted to share something that I've just received from Tanya Lott in the Philippines. As most of you know, we're working hard. The Alliance for Unitive Justice, which I'm involved in, is having a conference in October called the First Unitive Justice International Conference. The third day is a post-conference on transforming the legal system. And Kim is going to be one of our presenters. But another presenter is Tanya Lott from the Philippines. I'm just beginning to work on the materials, bring together the materials for CLE credit. And in relationship to that, Tanya sent me a 20-page article that she wrote called "The Law School as Generative Social Field for Cultivating Liberty, Prosperity, and the Rule of Law." And in it, she refers to the Legal Education Reform Act of 1993. I believe in the Philippines, they've been having this conversation, and they are much farther along than we are on this. In reading it, for one thing, their constitution actually has social justice objectives written into it. But apparently they are actively working on this and working to change it. And the article, I've just started reading the article that she sent, but it's fantastic. If I can get permission from her to share it with you all, I'll do that. She's talking about, the first year law students all have stars in their eyes. And then by the time they get to the third year, they're just wondering about how they're going to pass the bar and get a high paying job. And also she talks about how research indicates that the reputation of lawyers is terrible. And so they ask, how much is that due to what's happening in law schools and how they're training lawyers? So it's really fascinating. So she will be one of the presenters at the conference, and she will be talking about the transformation of the law school curriculum. So very excited about that.
Thank you, Sylvia. And if you do get permission, please share the link, and we'll make sure to get it out. And just to folks know, just as an aside, the conference that Sylvia was referring to, PISLAP is a co-sponsor, and we're trying to actually create an in-person PISLAP gathering at the conference, so or right before the conference. So more on that another time. But thank you, Sylvia. Oh, Lisa, you're back. Okay. Oh no, I'm sorry. I told Claire. So Claire headed first, then Lisa. Go ahead, Claire.
Okay, sorry, I was just trying to lower my hand. I find it distracting when I see that sitting up there. Remarkably manages to cause stress, even though I was on to put it up. So I'm not a lawyer, and there's a little part of me thinking, what am I doing here? But I watched the film. I haven't quite finished it, but the film that was in the link, and it stirred something in me. And my background is, in terms of my academic background, is that I did a master's degree at JFK in consciousness studies a long time ago. And that school has closed down. New College, as we know, has closed down. And it seems to me that educational institutions that have an impulse to impact paradigms in a good way, based on inclusivity and fairness and justice, either close down or get devoured by private institutions that want to just generate more income for themselves. But I feel activated by the film and by the fact that this conversation is happening, because I'm wondering how we might, and I'm not sure who we is, but how we might approach that larger conversation around how is it that in a global community, things that are basically unjust are not questioned. I know they are by lawyers, but they're not questioned by mainstream reality as to whether or not they should even be allowed. Governments attacking their civilians, or institutions that are trying to open up the imagination into realms of justice in social life. How to work together? Is there something to be done that can help really propel a change of paradigm? And I know that's a massive question, but I think that's just what's stirring in me, and I just wanted to sort of voice it out loud. I don't know where it goes as a thought from there, but I feel something happening because of reading the article and because of the film, and just feeling like I'm at a stage in my life where I want to talk about this stuff more out loud and affect practical changes towards how we perceive acceptable and not acceptable realities.
Yeah.
Claire, and actually, Bonnie, just before we go over to Lisa and then Twyla, Bonnie had a comment in the chat that responds to your comment that maybe, I don't know, Bonnie, if you wanted to amplify that at all for a second.
I just thought it was wonderful that you brought that up, because there does seem to be some kind of a pattern, given the fact that New College of Florida is going through that the Board of Trustees was just replaced, the president of the college was replaced, and they're having trouble getting new students to come because there's a lack of feeling of inclusion and safety on campus for so many of the students. So it was interesting that Claire brought that up, because I keep mentioning New College because I'm seeing that pattern taking place right now.
Right.
Thank you, Bonnie. Lisa, over to you.
Sorry about that. My internet went out right when it was my turn to talk. But I wanted to first say that for Chris's sake, isn't it true that JFK is not closed, but it's mutated into something else?
Some of the programs, I think that the law school got kind of absorbed under the umbrella of this national university. And we said, well, we need to maintain the name. So we are JFK School of Law at National University. I think the psych program does that. But I'm not sure entirely, Claire. But Claire's experience is right that as an independent entity, it had to basically get absorbed by this parent, within the corporate big box education world. So JFK lives, Claire, in some ways. JFK still lives. I moved there after my 20-something year tenure at New College, and have been teaching there for the last number of years. Yeah.
But hasn't it changed names? Is it what's it called now?
Well, the programs that survived, the programs that continued, some of them merged with national university programs. So when they had a similar program, it just merged. But other programs kept their identity, so they would be called, JFK School of Graduate Psychology at, National University, something like that. I don't know. They've obviously not done a good job of, announcing what exactly happened, because I think most people had the impression you did, that, they closed down. Long story of all of these things, but yes, it's still alive. Still, in some respects, it's still alive. Yeah.
So our transformative institutions alive. That's important. Twyla, over to you.
Hello. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Okay.
I have some internet issues too.
Isn't it?
So.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to finish my my turn.
Oh, sorry,
maybe
Lisa, you hadn't finished. I apologize.
No, that was just an intro too. So,
oh, okay, please go ahead.
Because
Then
I
fire.
may be disappeared again shortly by my stupid internet. Anyway, so 2 points. One is, and I'm sorry I couldn't say this when the discussion was focusing on this, but I'm wondering if the creative ideas around what apprenticing with a judge instead of going to law school lose the community that can be, that I saw at New College Law School, that I think defined the people who graduated from there in significant.
Oh, you're lost, Lisa.
Let's give her a second to unfreeze.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Hello?
now we can hear you again.
Oh.
You left off.
I'm going to
about the
talk fast.
community.
Okay,
talk fast.
So the community that I saw at New College, that I think in some ways was a part of why the graduates were so amazing, are so amazing, and why New College made its mark as a result. But so that's 1. 2, I just want folks to know that Kathy, Chris, and I showed the movie to some San Francisco State University students. I didn't. I sat there doing what I'm doing now, and this young man said, "Is there any place like that anywhere still?" And then, can we start another one? And Chris was kind of like, well, I don't really want to start another one, but if you want to start another one, we're kind of tired. But I'm just saying, there are people out there who are turned on, who would do something, who would step up, and who would definitely take a crack at it. And maybe this time, with the changes that you all are developing. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Lisa. Twyla? Twyla, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You're next please jump in. It's hard when we're such a good group. I know we want to do back and forth, but I also want to make sure, because everybody's
That's
bringing us
okay.
such great ideas, but I want to make sure everybody speaks as well. So over to you, Twyla. And then
Well, I just wanted to respond to what Claire said and what Duncan said about the soft thing is the hard thing, soft work is the hard work. And what Claire is saying reminds me of a lot of what I saw in the film. I watched the whole film, and I was very struck by how much of it is about building community. And Lisa's talking about the community that existed inside New College Law School. And community, to me, I've taught community building, and to me, it's a thing that can be very small, between two people, a small group of people, or it can be outright reach to a wider community. But it seems to me, Claire, that the thing you're referring to that's the real challenge is about that, both in terms of engaging a larger community in the effort and strengthening the inner community that's actually trying to do the work. And in teaching community building, one of the principal ideas was that you cannot weave it. We talked a lot about reweaving the fabric of community. And if you think about a loom and the way weaving a fabric works on a loom, you cannot weave a strong fabric out of threads that go all in the same direction. It's really the places where they cross that's where the strength of the fabric comes in. And to do that effectively requires the relational skills. One of the my husband and I, my late husband and I, taught a community building class at UT, and we were trying to see whether that bonded feeling of community could be created in a classroom environment over a semester. And there was a real turning point in the class at the point in the semester, which was about maybe a third of the way in, where we surprised our students by letting them know that eye contact was something we were looking at, and they had not realized that at all because we hadn't brought it up in the semester. But we did an exercise where they went around and said their names, and then they said everyone's names. I wanted to make sure that everyone knew everybody's name in the class. There was a student who had been absent. We had one absence and it was excused that semester, and it was hers. And so she missed that. And when she came back, I told the class she'd had an excused absence and missed what we'd done in that little exercise, and I wanted to do it for her. So we did, and everybody went around and said their name once, and then she went around and said their name back to them. And then I asked her if she would tell the class what instructions I had given her privately just before the class began. And she said, yes, you asked me to notice when people said their names, and when I said their name back to them, who made eye contact with me when we did that. And the class began to get a little anxious. These were honor students, very interested in grades. And so I asked her, can you tell us when we did this, not who, but how many people, when they said their name to you, made eye contact with you? And she said, yes, all but one. And I said, and when you said their name back to them, how many people made eye contact with you then? And she said, all but one. And there was a shift in the class. Part of it was, oh my God, she might be grading on eye contact. What do we do now? But it was a thing that really made a difference in the semester. And shortly thereafter, we were able to move into discussion of conflict, because I had a wonderful young woman in the class who decided to kind of take me on. I don't remember what I was talking about, but whatever it was, she offered an adversarial point of view with an interesting vigor, and did not cross any lines of being respectful. So she did it well. And I was able to thank her for that and introduce discussion about conflict and the value of conflict, how conflicts can bring us together or tear us apart, depending on how we handle them. But I just wanted to offer that somehow these things seem to me to be sort of basic to the culture of education that you're talking about, and also to the issues of the challenges, the really basic fundamental challenges that everyone is facing in trying to do this work. Seems to me to, I feel Peter is with us here today. And I'm thinking about all of the things that he said and wrote about connection and recognition, and those are those softer things that are the smaller work that enables the larger work. That's all.
Thank you, Twyla. Did anybody want to say anything at this moment before we move on with Kim and Duncan? Just wonderful thoughts here. Thank you for the story as well, Twyla. I remember you had shared it before, and it made an impression then, and it does again now. Yeah. Kim.
So I heard some talk about creating a law school, and I want to offer another perspective. I actually think creating a law school in some ways is such a wonderful idea, because it brings like-minded people together. But I also really like the idea of spreading this among all the law schools. And so Lyle mentioned earlier that the American Academy of Law Schools, I guess that's what AALS stands for, actually has a section on balance in legal education. And I remember when there was a listserv called Humanizing Legal Education in the late 90s that Larry Krieger started. And it was a handful of people. And then they got a section created. And then there was the celebration of 200 law schools, which are there at that point, there were 200 members of the AALS. And having 200 law schools represented on that task force actually started a shift towards well-being being a conversation that was okay to have. And now, I think it's next week they have Well-Being Week that the ABA is putting on. And so I see, like, if we're going to mainstream this, that we need to infiltrate and go in like we are, like that we have the courage of the community that's outside, but then we are going into the places where these ideas have not been spoken before, and actually having the courage to speak them.
So I wanted to follow up on something that Marjorie wrote about relational skills and the soft stuff. And I think I'm hearing two different themes here, at least from my point of view. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I decided not to be a lawyer, even though I went to law school. And so I'm coming from that place. And so what I'm hearing is that there are some folks that are interested in the more justice-oriented political organizing, more left-oriented ideology, I think. And there's another theme here, at least for me, and that's like the opposite of transformational. that the relational skills, the human skills, the soft stuff, what's it like for me when I'm in conflict? I mean, I teach facilitators how to engage in facilitation practices, and the hardest thing for them is what's happening inside them when they're in a conflictual situation. To me, those skills are not transformational at all. They're like the opposite of transformational, that something has happened to our culture where we've become so left-brained dominant, so rational in our way of approaching things. And that's the way I was taught to be a lawyer, was to dissociate from my emotional and physical life. And so for me, that's the integration here, is to put Humpty Dumpty back together again, to say this is about being a human being and how to care for one another, how to care for a client. Sorry if that sounds like a bit of a commercial, but it doesn't sound transformational to me at all.
Can I just say, sometimes what's transformational is that which we think should have been natural.
Right.
Ken, did you want to say something, or? I see you put it in the chat.
Okay, quickly, I'm just trying to put my video back on. Since the subject of well-being came up, I put in the chat that I wrote an unpublished article called Followership and Equanimity for Legal Professionals. I know Kim has read it and included it in some of the materials that she took with her to South Africa. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kim, because I don't want to
That's correct. Yeah.
misrepresent you. That would be bad. So if anyone wants to check that out, please email me or phone me, text me at the information provided, and maybe that will generate some further discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. Bruce?
Duncan's classifications triggered something for me. We're all interested in transforming the society and transforming legal education. But there's also a question of serving students, and mostly young people. And they're very needy. We've heard some things here. You know, Kim says they lack certain basic abilities. There's a whole focus on well-being now. I have this interesting insight. I teach a class called Lawyers and Peacemakers, which I stole the title from Kim. And we have a significant mindfulness component. And as a matter of sort of structure, I have the students keep a journal of their mindfulness practice every day, just very short entries, which I review a couple times. And the window I get into the well-being of students is not very pretty. Anxiety and discouragement. And you all know the statistics about how following about 2012, when social media became very prevalent, and the law students now grew up with it. You know, there's just a lot of isolation. There's a lot of performative communication rather than, you know, interpersonal communication. The political correctness is very stifling for people. They can't really say too much because, you know, there's only certain things that are permitted. So I think we have to keep we have to keep in mind this dimension. We're not only trying to transform the society and transform legal education, we need to serve these young people better. They've got troubles.
I stuck my hand up again because I just want to also respond to you, Duncan. You triggered a need to sort of say out loud that I fully resonate with this sort of the dominant rational and how that affects things. And in my research, which ended up becoming dynamic emergence, I was looking at Howard Gardner's ways of knowing, like the multiple intelligences, and I summarized them into rational, emotional, and sensory. And what I discovered whilst I was going through that process is something that I call the inversion theory, which is that if any one of those three ways of knowing becomes dominant, it basically pathologizes itself. It becomes its own opposite. And I just think it's important for people to be able to have access to information that helps deconstruct what is assumed to be normal. So that assumption that it's normal to be left-brained and to kind of cut off parts of ourselves in our education, and therefore cut off our empathetic capacity to relate to one another or to even to the planet. So yeah, that's just what you brought forward in me. Thank you.
Is somebody else starting to speak? Chris.
I'll just say
Kim,
quickly to follow up on what Bruce said. In our course, we actually have a well-being mentor for this semester for every student. Last semester they were in groups of 4, and it's actually shocking to have that window in that the other professors don't have. And it really, we are seeing a lot of the things in seemingly well-adjusted students, president of the student body, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, like doing all of the things that you would think somebody who's really functional is doing. And yet we're getting a look inside at that level of anxiety and stress that we mostly read about.
I just want to ask quickly, something I've seen which matches exactly what the research is showing is that women are worse off than men. When I have to think about the students I read about who are in big trouble, it seems mostly women. Are you seeing the same thing?
No, I think that the women are expressing it more, but we're seeing it in both.
That's a good point. They do talk more.
Yeah.
Let's see, Marjorie had a note, and then we'll have Chris. Did her presentation on mental health in law schools. Interesting. Yeah. Chris, do you want to say a word or two, and then maybe we'll close out.
Okay. Probably like a lot of you, a lot going through my head, hearing everybody's views. I do think that having a community for students as they're going through this path is really important, as well as integrating them into the community, into the legal profession itself, and to the community which they should serve. A few years ago, I taught first-year students a 1-unit course on the legal profession. And the real goal was to bring in lawyers and judges to talk to them about not what kind of cases they worked on, but what their lives were like as lawyers and judges, and what challenges they faced as lawyers and judges. And it was amazing to me that the lawyers and judges really wanted to open up and talk about primarily the things that gave them great satisfaction, but also the just the very harsh demands on them, on us, and how it was overwhelming in many ways. Was really overwhelming. I think that this thing about Lisa, forgive me. I don't want to get into a debate about it, but I think that having just one law school to try to incorporate all these great values, I think it puts legal education off the hook. It takes legal education off the hook. That I think that these types of values, qualities, should be tried to be incorporated everywhere. And I actually think there's a willing, welcoming audience. Every lawyer you talk to knows exactly what everybody's talking about here. Every lawyer knows that the demands of the profession, force them to work in a certain way, live in a certain way, and it's very unsatisfying. All the sociological studies, and the lawyers have been studied probably more than any other profession. It's really sad. It's very sad how high the level of dissatisfaction is amongst the legal profession. I believe that the majority of law students come into law school with well-intended interest to be good lawyers, to be thoughtful people, and not to get strung up in this entire thing. So I love the idea of trying to attract more and more people. I think the message that PISLAP has on a lot of this is very appealing to a lot of people in the profession, as you know, and in law school. And I couldn't help but think that, you know, I mean, a webinar that presents a lot of, you know, some of these views about lawyering might be very well received by many people. That's all I think. So it's kind of one of my favorite phrases of all time is from Antigone, where Ismene tells Antigone, "Oh, you're in love with the impossible." You know, that's what you are. You're in love with the impossible because she wants to do something that perhaps, you know, shouldn't be done, couldn't be done. So I think trying to influence all of the legal education is a great goal. That's what I think. Even if it seems impossible.
Thank you, Chris. And maybe just
I forgive you.
And just a last word, maybe to close us out, which is to say that, of course, you know, PISLAP's ultimate aspiration is to transform the culture in ways that are deepening justice, equity, and connection. So to the extent that the project of improving the experience of law students and their ability to connect with others is so important. But I think it's always important for us to touch base back with the ultimate goal, which is to transform our culture and our society in a direction of social justice. And I think everyone here is committed to that. So this was just fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I know we need to follow up with this and continue. I love Chris's suggestion of the webinar. There might be other suggestions. So I may just drop you all a line as a group, if that's okay, so that we can just follow up with a few thoughts. I think I've got everybody's email, so I'm going to try to do that, and we'll see what comes of it. And it's just been wonderful to be with you. Anyone else have a closing remark before we go? I know we're kind of late, but all right.
I saved the chat. You know, there's so much there that things that just went by and I didn't have a chance to look. So I just suggest before we close out that if you want to take a second look, save the chat.
I just saved it now. Thank you, Kim. Great, good idea.
How do you save it?
You click the three dots on the bottom right. I think I left click it, and it saves it. And when you leave, it should save. All right, be well, everyone. Great to be with you. Oh, Ken, did you want to say something?
Sorry. I know how to save the chat, but then I don't know how to find it when I close my computer later. But
I'll send it. I'll send it along with the follow-up email. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll send it if I saved it correctly myself. All right.
Thanks for this great call, you guys.
Thanks all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye.
Great call.